So, very quick agenda. We're going to start with a little introduction to the Accelerate, Transform, and Scale Initiative Hub, which we affectionately refer to as the ATS Hub. Next, we're going to tell you all about the Ideas Challenge, the goals, the process, and some of the amazing benefits for successful participants. And then we've got a good chunk of time to answer any questions. Next slide. Our presenters today are our esteemed colleague and partner, Liz Albro, Commissioner of the National Center for Education Research at the Institute for Education Sciences, my colleague, Shayla Kornick, who is Deputy Director of EdTech here at Digital Promise, and me, I am also a researcher at Digital Promise and am Principal Investigator for the ATS Hub. Next slide. I would also like to acknowledge our partners in the Hub, SRI International, and of course the Institute for Education Sciences, which is both the funder for this initiative and also a valued partner. And now I'm going to turn the floor over to Liz to say a few words about the Accelerate, Transform, Scale initiative and why IES is investing in this Ideas Challenge.
All right. One more slide, right? So welcome to the Ideas Challenge. We are so happy to have you all here. We're really happy that we've been able to launch this. So just a bit of context. The Accelerate, Transform, Scale initiative sits within the National Center for Education Research, which is within the Institute for Education Sciences, which is the Statistics Evaluation and Research arm of the U.S. Department of Education. NCER's tagline, if you will, our mission is to support rigorous research that addresses the nation's most pressing education needs from early childhood to adult education. I'm trying to think how long ago it was. A few years ago, we received some directives from Congress to try to figure out ways to really incentivize getting high quality, rigorous work out into our education community more quickly. And from that, the directive was born the Accelerate, Transform, and Scale initiative. What our job is under this umbrella hub that Rebecca and her team are leading is to bring bold, innovative ideas to education at scale. I've included a link there if y'all are curious to learn more about other programs that we are supporting under this work. But one of the requirements and expectations for ATS is that we are going to solicit and get get input about ideas that are ripe to transform education practice. And so the Ideas Challenge is the place that we are looking for input from all of you all on the phone and hopefully lots of your friends to help us bring or identify rather ideas with transformational potential and high quality evidence to support that potential to improve education outcomes. And that is all. I am going to be in the background listening to my colleagues share with you all of the work that they have been doing, and I'm looking forward to your Q&A. So Rebecca, I believe this goes back to you now.
Yes, thank you. Okay, so let's dive into the Ideas Challenge. We started with the proposition that to improve college student outcomes in college, career, and life, students must be equipped with durable, future-ready, and executive functioning skills that will prepare them for success. So, to this end, the ATS is hosting a virtual crowdsourced ideas challenge open to the public to address this critical need. We're really looking to cast a wide net. The guiding question for the challenge is what breakthrough, highly scalable innovations could foster every learner's agency, durable skills, and executive functioning skills while building academic content knowledge. And I want to highlight that these innovations could be a model, it could be a policy, it could be a system or a tool. So while we won't be surprised if we get a lot of ideas that involve technology, we're certainly open to a broader range of different types of solutions. I also wanted to note that we explicitly emphasize building academic content knowledge while a focus is on durable skills, because We think competencies such as critical thinking skills and creativity cannot be effectively developed in isolation. Really, they are cultivated and expressed only through a robust foundation of domain knowledge. So we want to honor the connection between these two sets of skills. So the ultimate goal of the Ideas Challenge is to identify novel, evidence-based ideas that are ready to be transformed into quick turnaround, scalable solutions with the potential to improve learner outcomes. And now I'm going to turn over to Shayla to share all the information about how this competition is going to work.
Thank you so much, Rebecca and Liz, for setting the stage for this. I am incredibly excited about this challenge and just the opportunity that it offers for the field. When I initially came into work for this challenge, Liz was very specific about we want this to really be accessible for everyone to be able to apply and share their ideas. And you'll see that through the way that the application for the challenge is structured. So, applying to the challenge in itself is comprised of three phases. The first phase is the open phase, where you will submit your initial concepts and ideas for review. Then we have the discovery phase and the prize phase. I will go into detail about what each of those phases include in the following slides. There are also three life stage tracks for this challenge: early childhood, K through 5, 6 through 12, and then we have a third one for post secondary and adulthood. And again, I want to emphasize who should apply for this challenge. I used to be a teacher. I used to be a sixth grade math teacher. And I never thought about doing stuff like this, about sharing ideas that came out of my experience with my students in the classroom. But I want to encourage you, if you are an educator, if you're a researcher, an entrepreneur, practitioner, community organizations. This challenge is really intentionally designed for and open to everyone to apply. And we'll go into more details on eligibility in the next slide. So here are the participant eligibility requirements. You must be based in the United States. You must be 18 years or older. We love our ideas from our students, and we hope that those can be shared through adults applying for the challenge. The proposal must be relevant to education in the United States and address factors that are under U.S. Education system control. Rebecca shared some of our goals for the challenge in the earlier slides. You cannot be an employee of some of the affiliated organizations to include Digital Promise, SRI, IES, and the U.S. Department of Education, as well as any entity directly involved in the challenge. Earlier, Rebecca talked about our ATS Hub technical working group, and those individuals are not eligible to apply, nor any immediate team members that are working with them. And you must agree to the rules and terms of participation and adhere to the competition schedule, which again, we will share in the coming slides. But what this tells us is that this is still open to so many people. Again, a number of individuals within our EdTech ecosystem are encouraged to apply. And we can go to the next slide. And so here is a high level overview of everything that's involved with the challenge. Where we are now, we are in the open phase. The application is open right now today, and I'm going to ask Grace to drop a link in the chat if she can, just so you can start to take a look at that if you'd like as we go through the presentation. The application phase goes through, the application will remain open through July 24th, I believe, and we will announce the winners on mid-September. So that's what you can expect in terms of the application window. Yes, July 24th is the close date. And sorry, we didn't have that application close date there. As part of that, I'll share with you what you will submit for your application. Thank you very much, Grace. Um, But again, it's very, very light lift in terms of what we will be asking. At the conclusion of the open phase rounds, 27 concepts will advance to the discovery round. And during the discovery round, they will engage in learning sessions with experts to refine their problem statements, create their theory of change, which includes kind of thinking about their inputs and outcomes, what resources will you need, who will you work with, all of those things, and what evidence do you have to support it. There will be a video pitch submission as part of the discovery phase. And what I'm really excited about here is that we are going to engage the community to support the discovery phase. So 70% of the scoring for the discovery phase will be with a judging panel and their review, but then 30% will be community voting using the videos that you all submit. After that phase, 9 teams will advance to the prize phase. They will also receive $10,000 to support the further development of their concept. And then during the prize phase, they will be paired with a dedicated mentor, again, receiving additional support from experts in the field as they further refine their concept. And at the conclusion of that phase, they will submit a proof of concept report as well as another video around their concept for review by both a panel and live community voting. In March of 2027, we will identify a winner and 3 winners. I'm sorry, let me correct that. 3 winners, one per track. And each of those winners will receive $50,000 as part of the grand prize. There will be an award ceremony in June of 2027. So, all really, really exciting. And we can go to the next slide. So let's talk a little bit about the open phase form that is currently available. Grace has placed the link to the application form in the chat. So if you're following along, you'll see what I am about to talk through right now. So essentially, this is a very, very short form. You'll start by entering some general information about your concept to include a title. And yes, you do have to select a track that it addresses. I can imagine there are many questions around what if my concept addresses many tracks or multiple tracks? For this, we are going to ask that you select the one that you feel most closely and strongly represents your concept. There is a concept overview. And as part of that, you will enter a problem statement, and we want it to be short, concise, and not a heavy lift. So we have limited that to 75 words. You will provide a description of your proposed solution, as well as give us some idea around what makes it original, what makes it innovative. And we can go to the next slide. You will also share one thing. Oh, there it is. I was like, where's the impact and evidence? All right. You will also, Liz earlier talked about the impact that, we are hoping to see through this work and through the ideas on outcomes for students. And so we would like to hear your early thinking on that. What difference do you think your concept will make for students' education outcomes? And what evidence do you have to support it? We'll ask for you to share 1 to 2 sources of evidence, again, keeping it very light lift, but letting us know that you've done your research and there is evidence to support your concept and the impact that it may have for students. And lastly, just general contact information for the lead. Later on, for those that advance in the challenge, we will ask more information about your team, more details. But right now, we just want to know who you are. Who do we reach out to if you are to advance to the next phase of the challenge? Again, very low lift in terms of the application. So what happens after you hit that submit button, which I hope you will hit that submit button sooner than later, we have a team of reviewers that across Digital Promise will review it for completion, and then we'll pass it on to our panel of expert judges to also review your submissions. That process will occur throughout August. And then in September, we will announce those that will advance to the discovery phase. And we can go to the next slide. Wow. Did I go through that super fast? I feel like I did. But we would like to leave time for any questions you have and spend the rest of our time there. So I will stop talking and open it up for any questions. Feel free to put them in the chat. And between Rebecca, Liz, and myself, we will answer your questions.
One quick question for you, Shayla, that I've seen repeated is, can you submit more than one idea?
That is a wonderful question, Grace, and I will double check that in our guidelines and confirm in just a moment.
Sounds good. Another question is about, do tools need to be student facing? Could you propose a solution to improve teacher skills with the theory that better teaching would improve student outcomes?
I'm happy to take this one, and the answer is no. Tools do not need to be student facing. We welcome concepts that improve teachers' skills. As I said, we're open to models, systems, practices, products. So we really are interested in a wide range of different kinds of solutions.
This one might be for you, Shayla. Are the judges through Digital Promise or are they external? We won the NSF Vital Prize and we're wondering if we should include updates from that.
Congratulations first. And then second, no, the judges are expert judges from across the education ecosystem. So educators, researchers, practitioners, business owners, policymakers. So we have a pool of about 20 expert judges, and that will be judging the submissions.
Thanks, Shayla. We have a couple questions regarding the US based eligibility. The first one is if an organization is based in the US but run remotely by team members who may not be based in the US or may not be US citizens.
Liz, I'm looking at you, but
I know. I didn't know if Sheila was going to go back and look at the directions. Um, so the first is that there's no requirement about citizenship. So I just wanted to put that out on the table. I think that if you have an organization that has an organizational like an entity identification number that's based in the United States, you should be okay in terms of this. I think, Shayla, you should cross check me, double check me, make sure that there's nothing I'm saying that's out of turn. But yeah, should be US facing, and your entity should have a fiscal home in the United States.
Thanks, Liz. What about for-profit companies? Would we be able to protect our intellectual property that is associated with our solution?
the answer to that is yes. The competition is certainly open to for-profit companies, and while we welcome open science practices and principles, there is not a requirement that your intellectual property be open sourced. The one thing I would say is that we will be publicizing the winners of the competition. So if you wanted to keep your ideas under wraps and not let people let anyone try to, get in on your fantastic idea, then this might not be the best competition.
I'd also like to go back to a couple of questions. The first question was, can a single individual submit multiple concepts? And we did limit it to one per individual in terms of submissions. And then the second, Liz, just following up, what you said was 100% correct. We do not have a US citizenship requirement, but the organization must be based in the US. But some individuals on the team may be outside of the US. The focus is on the US education system, so I do want to just emphasize that that is part of, the goals of the challenge is we're looking for solutions that are relevant to the US education system.
I saw another question come up. Yes, US and territories, we should have said, right? So definitely Puerto Rico is eligible for this competition.
Thanks, Liz. We have a question about evidence. What counts as evidence? Does it need to be peer-reviewed research?
So maybe we could go back to the slide that shows, oh, that one. Yep. So we want to see 1 to 2 sources of evidence. We do require at least one peer-reviewed um, study be included in that evidence. But if you have another source of evidence from your, maybe a pilot that you ran in your school district or some other source, then that could be your second piece of evidence.
Thanks, Rebecca. We have some questions regarding if kind of the idea has already been piloted. So would it still be eligible, and can the preliminary evidence be provided to as a part of the evidence in support of the idea?
I would say yes, with a caveat that one of the or two of the criteria that we're going to be judging this first round of applications on is innovation and originality. So if this is a kind of unique idea that you have tried in your school or in your district, but it has not been sort of it is not widely known or something that a lot of people are already doing, then it could be a strong candidate. Um, but we are looking for original ideas.
What if the idea already has funding? Is there a cap on funding that's already been raised in order to be eligible?
Um, that's an interesting scenario. I I feel like in the spirit of this competition is more to bring in new ideas, and to stimulate breakthrough concepts that would not normally be or typically find their way into IES grant competitions. Um, so, I don't think there's anything in our rules that excludes ideas that have already received grant funding or are, have formal studies going on, but I think that might count against um, a concept.
Thanks, Rebecca. And just want to note that Shayla did just mention in the chat that we are going to share out these slides as well as an FAQ page following this webinar. And we also have a form for applicant questions that I'll show at the end of today's presentation, and that's linked on our website. So if you have any kind of specific questions that aren't answered on the FAQ page, you can submit a question to us directly. Let's see. Shayla, could you talk a little bit more about some of the prizes and supports, specifically the workshops? And I can go back.
Absolutely. So for example, during the discovery phase, there will be workshops such as journey mapping or supporting the development of your theory of change. There'll also be kind of experts to help you think about your problem statement and solution, and they'll be focused on supporting the refinement of those. We will also host office hours where if you have questions that are more specific to your individual concept or challenges that you're coming across in your individual work, you can come receive more targeted support with experts during office hours. During the prize phase, there will be an element of gathering evidence from potential stakeholders related to your concept. So the workshops will support identification of those, support the gathering of evidence for those, the analyzing of that evidence and using it as you draft your proof of concept report. You know, the thinking behind this challenge is that you will refine your idea and have a proof of concept report that you will be able to use to more broadly and clearly articulate your concept and have supporting evidence for it. So really excited about the workshops, the mentoring that will come along with the prize money for participants of the competition.
Will mentors be assigned based on the topic or idea being presented?
Yeah, we are going to try our best to match the mentors directly to the concept of the individual, which is why they are one to one. Each mentor will work with one team. So the 9 participants in the prize phase will have a dedicated mentor, and our goal is to have that mentor to be able to provide support based on the concept type and stage of that of the applicant.
Thank you, Shayla. Can individuals submit to more than one track?
So there is only one submission per participant. It has come up around organizations. Can organizations have multiple submissions? And that is possible as long as an organization can sponsor multiple submissions, as long as an individual does not participate on multiple submissions. Essentially, the idea is that we don't want to have one person, that is responsible for multiple submissions in the challenge. I'm going to drop the kind of exact language here in the chat and happy to explain a little bit further if that's not helpful.
I see there's another question about projects that have already received funding, whether there's a cap to the amount of funding we've currently raised to be eligible. We haven't set a cap. I think I would just reiterate what I said earlier, that we're really looking for early stage ideas. We're looking for originality. We're looking for ideas that are sort of new and different and that have breakthrough potential. Um, if there's a kind of a concept that you're trying out in your school or district and you have some evidence that this is promising that you want to share, I think that would be so within the spirit of the competition. If it's, if this is a project that's been running for a while, you've already got a, a working prototype, then I would say that you're probably further along in the process than what we're looking for. So I don't have a specific cap in funding, so much as, we're really looking for early stage concepts. And Liz, if there's anything that you want to add to that. Okay.
There's another question in the chat, Rebecca, that kind of touches on what it means to be an early stage idea in terms of evidence.
Mhm.
So, our citations for the idea is supposed to be from our own published research. How do we demonstrate that the team already has the expertise to do this work while also describing an early stage idea?
Um, so the answer to the first question is no. The citations or evidence do not need to be from your own research. What we're looking for are concepts that are grounded in theory and research. So you may have, seen a study that sparked an idea of how you might operationalize a learning science principle in a sort of new and different way that hasn't been tried before. That would be an example of how you might use evidence to support your idea. Um, we are not looking for uh, uh, Shayla, can you go back to the form? Or sorry, Grace, can you go back to the form that shows? Yes, we're for this first round, we just are asking for project lead information. So who's submitting the idea? We are not looking for you to make a case for team capacity at this stage. We might, as for successful applicants that make it through to later rounds, then we might work with you to think about who you would want to bring into your team, what kinds of skills you would need to take this idea forward, but that's not needed for the first round.
Rebecca, you want me to take that one? In
Sure.
terms of
I feel like I've tried to answer this a couple
the
different ways.
Yeah. So the idea here is that there are lots of ideas out in the world for which there is peer-reviewed, high-quality evidence that have never made it past the ideas phase, right? But perhaps conditions have changed, and we are now at a point where there is an idea that is ready and ripe to be transformed into a something. So we are looking for high-quality evidence that comes from peer review. I would encourage people to not restrict yourself to a narrow, like a disciplinary understanding of where the evidence can come from, right? So high quality evidence sits in many different locations, like in terms of like concepts. So I'm totally thinking randomly, like some of the most transformational ideas that we have seen across our nation over times is taking a concept, right, that has evidence in a particular disciplinary area that's completely not the same as education, and like thinking about how do you take that idea and turn it into something that can change outcomes for millions of students across the country. So this is really what we're looking for. So it's evidence that undergirds the idea, not evidence that undergirds a product or something that's already been developed. I hope that helps. Does that help, Rebecca? Did that?
Thank you. Right. Um, I see one question about serving K-12. So should the organization do two different submissions for elementary versus middle? I would say no, just do one submission and you can indicate in your submission that your solution actually would cover the whole spectrum. Timelines and submission URL. I think maybe we can put that in the chat again. Um, oh, I think all the information that you are looking for the challenge should be available on this uh, on the challenge website. And we'll just wait another minute or two to see if any more questions come up. in response to the question about ideas that are focused on a niche population like multilingual learners, absolutely. We are, uh, we're looking for, again, ideas with breakthrough potential, and those that breakthrough potential could be addressing a very specific student population with specific needs. K-12 include dual credit college courses for high school students transitioning to higher ed. Um, I think K-12 would make the most sense. It might depend a little bit on the idea if the concept if this makes sense, if you follow, is about the students and uh, how to best reach the students, or if then it would make sense to do that to submit to the K-12 track. If your concept is more about the delivery of those dual credit courses and has to do with something around the model for how those courses are um, staffed or other delivery mechanisms. I mean, I'm sort of trying to imagine what other kinds of projects you might have in mind here. But if you're sort of thinking more on the operational side, then post-secondary might make sense as well. And I think in these kinds of cases, I wouldn't agonize too much about which track it ends up in. If we look at a concept and feel like it could go in either place, then it should be fine.
If somebody won the Vital Prize, it looks like we have a couple winners in the chat. Does mentioning this in our concept submission help or hurt, or is it indifferent?
I would say indifferent. This is a completely different challenge, completely different goals. So I would say indifferent.
And I'm just going to throw out one other example. I was trying to think of a good example back to the earlier question about sort of how do you think about something as transformational, and where do you look for information around it? I'm going to just put out the concept of the GLPs, right? If we think about sort of Ozempic and all the stuff that's happened with that, let's just take a medical model, right? So that particular medicine was developed for another purpose entirely, right? So there was evidence that it worked to do one thing, but then there was a suggestion, right, an idea that we could actually use it for other purposes as well, and other evidence was generated. So this is what I'm hoping we can stimulate some thoughts about. How do we think differently about where evidence might come from that could help us think differently about how we are supporting outcomes for learners across the nation? Oh, thanks, Rebecca. Yes, there's a good definition.
Yes, I just put in the chat the link to we've developed a series of field notes through the ATS Hub, and one of these is specifically defining what we mean by breakthrough innovation. So just wanted to point you to that resource in case that helps to get your thinking going or to clarify what we have in mind.
There's a question about the scoring rubric. How will judges score originality versus evidence versus scalability? And will there be a public link to the rubric?
Shayla, do you want to take that one?
Yep, I can take that one. So the criteria for scoring, um, it should be in the guidelines, official rules and guidelines, and we can just double check that criteria. But in that criteria, it provides an overview of what judges will be looking for each of those components. And again, if details of that aren't included in the participant guidelines, that might be a revised update in the coming weeks.
If an applicant has a solution that is applicable to all tech-assisted teaching, age ages pre-K or grades pre-K through 16 and beyond, which track should this solution go into? I
Yes.
I think that's the question.
Yes, you will have to select one track. I think you may need to put your tactical hat on and think about where you might expect to face more competition, where you think that your idea solution might have the most impact or most far-reaching impact. Um, so, I think you have some flexibility to think about what's going to work best to your advantage.
Is it possible to add more than one track?
One more. If I understand the question correctly, the answer is no. The tracks are fixed, and you're limited to applying to one track.
Will distribution partners harm or help applications? I think Rebecca spoke a little bit to this earlier.
So yes, in the first round, we're not looking for a description of your team. We're just asking for the name and contact information for the person submitting the idea. Uh, I, the question makes me wonder about the maturity of your solution, that if you already have distribution partners, then maybe this is not an early stage concept. Um, you know, if 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 you have distribution partners for some other reason, because you have different products or different programs that you already offer, then having those partnerships in place could be beneficial when, further down the road when we get to the stage of um, of looking at the scalability of the concepts. But, I think this, the as the name suggests for the ideas challenge, our focus is really on the idea and um, coming up with concepts that really look at problems in a new way, or have the potential to kind of reframe the way we think about something. It's less about sort of team capacity and operational strength at this point.
Could somebody speak to the outcomes that we're most interested in, if there are particular ones?
So I would refer you back to the guiding question for the challenge. What solutions can support students' development of student agency, durable skills, and executive functioning, while building their academic content knowledge? So we don't have specific outcomes in mind, but I would expect them to be related to that guiding question. And maybe that's a good segue to address the question about behavioral AI to reduce social media addiction in students. If you believe that social media addiction is relevant to the development of durable skills and agency and executive functioning, then that seems like that would be applicable. And Chair, we will post these slides that we've presented as well as a recording, most likely on the ATS Hub website. Actually, you should be able to post them on both the ATS Hub and the Ideas Challenge platform. If you don't see them on the Ideas Challenge platform, then please do check out the Hub. Can we go to the last slide that has the links and the QR code? Great. So uh, we're not running. I'm not trying to cut this off, but just for anybody who needs to drop off, I want to make sure that you have our email address if you have further questions. There is a question form here if you want to submit them that way. We've provided, again, the website for the Ideas Challenge platform. And then at the bottom there, we also invite you to visit us at the ATS Hub website, where we have as I said, a series of field notes that are addressing different dimensions of developing breakthrough solutions in education, and where we will be posting other news and events related to the hub. So we're happy to hang out here for a few more minutes if people have other questions, but we really appreciate all of you taking time today to join us and to ask a lot of questions, some that we hadn't really thought about. So this has been great. And please get your ideas in. The portal is open, and we would love to see a lot of participation.
There's a question about funding. Since the dollar amount is small and building the solution would likely require more funds, is it okay to pitch a large scope with the assumption that funding from other sources in the future would be necessary?
Yeah, absolutely. And one way you might think about this is as a sort of planning grant. If for the winners, that $50,000 can help to provide resources for the time it takes to really develop a strong concept and full-blown proposal for foundation funding or for federal funding or for venture capital funding if your idea goes in that direction. Um, See another question about this, for an idea that you're already working on and making some progress. I guess I would say it's really a question of how developed this idea is. It's not a requirement that you have just come up with this idea in the past couple of weeks. If this is something that you've been noodling on for some time, that is absolutely fine. If you've been, you know, doing some of your, working on this yourself as sort of an individual project, also fine. I have a kid who's a computer science student, and he's always doing his little projects, thinking about problems that he can solve using artificial intelligence or whatever techniques. So that's totally fine. I think if it's a project that you've been working on for a couple of years, you have a team, it's been implemented anywhere, been piloted anywhere, then that's probably, past the idea stage of what we're looking for. All right. With that, I think we can wrap up. So thank you so much, Liz, for joining us today. Thank you, Grace and Shayla. And thank you again to all of our participants.